welcome to the Eurogamers developer sessions. Up next we have the guys from ArenaNet with Guild Wars 2, Colin, Theo and Martin.
Hey, good afternoon everybody. We're going to show you a little bit of Guild Wars 2 today. We're going to show you a trailer for the game. We're going to jump in the game and we're going to walk you through some of the gameplay. But before we do that, we wanted to take a quick moment and say thank you to the folks back in Seattle who have been staying up all night at our home office to play the game with you guys all weekend down on the show floor. So really quick, if everybody can hold up their Guild Wars 2 bags, we just wanted to get one quick picture for everybody back in the office to show what they're missing out here who couldn't make the trip. Oh, that's beautiful. We good? All right, thanks for that. I really appreciate it. And I know everybody back home is going to really appreciate getting to see that too. So we're going to jump right into it. We're going to show you a trailer here for Guild Wars 2.
Peggy 12.
Thanks. So something to note, we get asked this a lot is, hey, is that footage in the trailer actually real footage from the game? And the answer is yes, all of that is actual real footage inside of Guild Wars 2. None of that is cinematics, all of that is true footage you'll experience inside of the game when playing the game. So knowing that, let's talk a little bit about Guild Wars 2 as a game and the development of the game. So when we sat down to start working on Guild Wars 2, we asked a lot of questions about MMOs in general. We asked a lot of questions about what have people been doing with MMOs, including Guild Wars 1 in the last 10 years or so, and should we actually be making the decisions that we've made in the past about MMO development? And we came up with some areas that we felt that the genre could be innovated, and we wanted to focus on making those innovations for Guild Wars 2. So I'm going to talk about 3 core innovations for Guild Wars 2 that drive the development of the game across the board. So the first one is combat. Combat in Guild Wars 2 is highly dynamic. It's actually action-oriented. It plays much more like an action-based game than a traditional MMO. If you look at the way people play traditional MMOs, and Guild Wars 1 included, what you end up finding is people really spend a vast majority of their time actually watching the UI elements when they're playing the game, rather than looking at the middle of the screen and watching the combat that's actively going on. You're watching health bars move up and down. You're watching little icons appear and disappear, and skill recharges flash. And you're not actually looking at the combat, which is really unfortunate because we have these beautiful games with all this great stuff going on in the middle of the screen that you're not looking at. So in Guild Wars 2, the combat system is actually set up so that everything draws your eye to the middle of the screen where the action is happening. You can move and use skills at the same time. You can dodge, roll out of the way of attacks. Skills are very positional based and movement oriented. When you use a lot of skills, it'll actually cause you to jump backwards or roll as you use it. This gives the game a real strong sense of an action-oriented game instead of a traditional MMO. Skills are also very easy to understand and easy to see. They're highly visual, very visceral. So if somebody throws a fireball at you, you're going to see it coming, you're going to understand that's a fireball, I know what that does, and you can actually dodge out of the way of it and recognize that that's the way that a fireball should work. And that is the way that all the skills in the game are set up. You're never going to hover over a skill and have an entire paragraph telling you everything about what that skill does, so you need to memorize like a book of rules about how to play the game. Instead, you should be able to look at what other people are doing, recognize it, and react to it accordingly, and that is the game that we have made with our combat system for Guild Wars 2. So the second area of innovation on the game is in your personal story. Now, if you look at your characters in a traditional MMO and you say, what is the story of my character? You really can't answer that question. You have a list of things that you've done, but your character has no personality. They have no real story in the world. You are a nameless, faceless warrior who runs around and kills things. And we wanted to solve that problem. This is an MMORPG. It needs to have the RPG element in it. So what we've done is we've given your character a true personal story. When you create your character in Guild Wars 2, you actually fill out a biography where you answer questions about who your character is in our world. Did you always want to join the circus? Did you know your parents? Were you a member of the Ash Legion or the Iron Legion or the Blood Legion? And based on the answers you give to those questions, that actually determines your character's personal storyline in our world and the storyline that they get to experience. And there's a massive amount of different storylines that you can experience as you play through the game. And even if 2 people make the exact same character creation choices, say Martin over there, who's our demo driver for today, picks to be from the city streets and he never knew his parents, and I picked the exact same thing, we actually would experience a completely different story as we go through the game because we make choices that branch our storyline and send it in different directions. So this gives you that true element of a really epic, great single-player RPG inside of this MMO world. Now there are 60 feature films worth of voice dialogue recorded for Guild Wars 2 to ensure wherever you go in the world, everything is presented to you in the best way, the most immersive way, which is through voice dialogue. So you can hear it, you can experience it, and get drawn into the content, as opposed to have to read giant blocks of text about it like you would in a traditional MMO. Now the final area that we chose to innovate is in dynamic events. The core concept here is, we looked at traditional quests in a traditional MMO and realized these are not taking advantage of the fact that we have thousands of players running around in maps together, that we have millions of players running around in our online worlds. We've all had that experience where we play a traditional MMO, and you're on a quest, and somebody else runs into the area and starts killing creatures, and they're stealing your kills, they're preventing you from completing your quest, and you're really annoyed, like, oh, that guy needs to get out of here. And that completely defeats the purpose of an MMO. Why are we putting all these people in the world together that can't actually play together? Other people actually ruin your gaming experience. So we've taken traditional quests and we've thrown them out the window. They don't exist in Guild Wars 2. And we've replaced these with dynamic events. And dynamic events are content that you experience in the game world that randomly occur. So an example of this, just to help better explain what you're going to see in the game, is you might have a fort, and this is a fort that is run by the Char, and the Char are big cat people. You can see there's one selected up there. And the Char are organized into legions. There's the Iron Legion, there's the Ash Legion, there's the Blood Legion, and these are the legions that the players can choose to join. And based on the choice that you've made there, that actually decides one of the first personal stories you experience in the game. Now in the world, there's a fortress where these three allied Char armies are working together, and they're fighting against the Rogue Flame Legion group, which is the 4th Legion of the Char. These guys are some of the bad guys in the game. And you get a dynamic event chain where you first get an event to go out and try to take a camp from the Flame Legion. And troops will be pouring out of the main base that the Allied Char have, and you get this event going on in the world, and you're actually going to see and experience this content instead of having to read about it. You never walk up to a guy, talk to him, read 3 paragraphs of text, click accept, and then go do the quest. Instead, naturally in the world, this event occurs. Characters in the world are going to run up to you and through voice dialogue say, "We need your help, we need you to take over this base," and they'll show you where it is. You'll actually see troops running through the world. You're going to see siege weapons firing and exploding. And it naturally draws you into the content. It's very seamless, so you just walk in and start playing. Now, if you complete this event, if you and other players manage to take over this Flame Legion forward base, you get another event where you actually get to try to escort mortar teams up on a hill so that you can continue to progress into Flame Legion territory. And if you successfully get all the mortar teams up there, the mortar teams set up and they start bombarding down on a bridge area and they start taking the assault to the Flame Legion. This kicks off the next event in the chain where you actually get to go and assault the Flame Legion main base. All the while, those mortars that you helped set up are bombing in and supporting your attack. NPCs are running up with you, other players are running up with you, and you get an event to take over the Flame Legion main fortress. Now, if players fail to take over the Flame Legion main fortress, new events kick off and chain in different directions. So if you fail to take it in time, the Flame Legion will actually launch a counterattack. And they'll come back and they'll try to take out the mortars that you've got up on the hill. And you've got to defend these mortars, this is also a dynamic event, from the Flame Legion that are trying to take them out. If you're unable to do this, they'll actually push back and start retaking their territory, and eventually they'll launch a full assault on your allied base way back at the beginning of this event chain. If players lose control of that allied base, the Flame Legion now control this entire chunk of the map. The spawns in the map change and all become Flame Legion. They start taking over territory, and new events become available because of this content. Now, one of the interesting things to note about our dynamic event system is to ensure that there's always something for everybody to do. The dynamic events actually scale based on the number of players that are participating in the event. So as more players show up in the event, there will be more bad guys to fight, bosses get new abilities to help them fight more enemies, and bosses become stronger so that the game remains balanced regardless of the numbers of players that are there participating. So again, this is the idea of making it worthwhile for other players to be there to help participate in content. Players aren't ruining their experience, they're actually making it more exciting because the event's going to scale up and get better. Now on top of this, we've designed a couple of core systems for the game to support this idea of dynamic events. The first one is, if I go up and I start attacking a creature, and Martin comes over and helps me kill that creature, we both get experience, we both get rolls on the loot table, so that no other player can ever kill steal from me. They can't ruin my experience. Instead, they actually make the game more rewarding. They're helping me kill stuff faster. So when I see another player run into the area, my thought is not the traditional MMO thought, oh, that guy's going to ruin my experience. It's, yes, this event's going to get more fun. This is going to be more exciting. I have more players around. And that's what these games are all about. That's what an MMO is bringing players together and building a sense of community. Another system we've designed to help play into this is every single character in the game can res. So if anyone goes down, when you lose all your health, you get a last chance to kill something nearby. If you manage to do so, you pop back up and you get to keep fighting. Also at this point, other players can run up, any profession in the entire game can run up, kneel down, and start giving your character health back, and you're going to pop up and be able to keep fighting as well. So the game is definitely more rewarding if there are other players nearby because they're going to help you be able to stay alive, help you keep fighting, and they get rewarded for resing you, so the game is incentivizing them to play with you as opposed to the traditional method of penalizing them for not doing so. So we try to get players to play together and build this sense of community with our dynamic events, which is a big part of our game. How are we doing? All right. We're going through a few technical difficulties here, so we're going to get started here in just a second with some actual gameplay and show you what's going on. But first, let's talk a little bit about the races in Guild Wars 2. So we've talked about kind of the high level, what is this game about. One of the things to know about Guild Wars 2 is that there are 5 races in the game. There is the Char, there are the humans, the Norn, the Asura, and the Sylvari. And each one of these races plays into the game in very different ways. They each have unique personal storylines you can experience as you play through the game with each one of those races. And they have multiple distinct, unique personal storylines for each race that branch and change as you play through the game. So we're going to go ahead and we're actually going to show you a little bit of the human character creation experience here. So the first question, do you want to be male or female? The next question is, what profession do you want to be? We've revealed 7 of the 8 professions so far for Guild Wars 2. No, I'm not going to reveal the 8th one today, sorry. And your options here, we've got the Elementalist, the Ranger, the Warrior, the Necromancer, the Guardian, the Thief, and the Engineer. And I think for today's demo, we're going to go ahead and question mark. For today's demo, we're going to go ahead and go with the Warrior. So at this point, you actually get to set up your character's appearance in the world, the look of your character. And this is the point where basically you're going to be selecting from different body options. It looks like the technical difficulties we're having with the projector here is preventing these from displaying. I assure you this is not a problem with the game. If you guys want to see it on the show floor, it's working just fine. And there, All right, so you're going to get a lot of options here to pick between different body features. You can have a thinner character, you can have a much larger one. We're going to have a lot more options on the full release of the game to pick from here as well, so that you have tons of different character variation to select and get the look and feel of your character that you want to have. You can pick from different hairstyles here, and different hair colors that are available to you as well, so you can get exactly the look that you want to have. I'm not sure if you would want that look, but you can pick that one. Next you can pick from a... Hey, there it is. Next you can pick from a bunch of different face options. And you can set a number of different skin tones and skin colors for your character as well. We give our characters some very nice facial hair. Yeah, let's get the beard. All right, and next we can go over, do you want to do facial details in a market? We'll show a little bit of that as well. So the facial details, this is the point where you actually get down to the little nuances that make your character feel very distinct and unique. This is where, you know, another character can have a beard and the same haircut as you. But what are the little details in your face that really make your character stand out? You can actually set the angles of your eyebrows and the size of your eyes, the placement of your eyebrows. You can go down to your nose and you can adjust the bridge of your character's nose and the size of the nose, the height. Next, you can adjust the mouth and the placement of the mouth, both for the upper lips and lower lips. You can adjust the width of the mouth. And finally, you go down and you actually set up your chin and your jaw, so you can have a big old chin. You can have a little chin if you want to. Entirely up to you. And again, you're going to have a lot more options in here on the final version of the game. This is really just the early stuff that we've got set up. There'll be plenty more options to pick from. So next, we can go down to our character's armor dies. And each piece of armor in Guild Wars 2 has 3 die channels available to it, which allows you to get a lot of customization between the die colors. On top of this, there are 400 die colors available to you in Guild Wars 2, so you can get exactly the color palette that you want to have out of the dies for your armor. These are just some samples of some of the ones you will have in the game. Another unique thing about the die system in Guild Wars 2 is the game actually remembers the colors that you dyed on your armor. So if you dye your helmet to look like what Martin has set up there, and a new helmet drops for you in the game will auto-dye your helmet all of the colors of the stuff you're currently wearing. So you can throw it on and have it match the clothes that you're wearing, and you don't have to go through the trouble of trying to remember what dyes you use. You can, of course, keep dyeing it from there if you want to, but it's just a little matter of convenience. All right, so we're going to head now into what is your character's biography. And I talked a little bit about this when we were referring back to your personal story. This is the point where we tell the world who is your character. The first question that you get to see here, this is a profession-specific question. That was, do you want to wear, what helmet do you start with, or do you not want a helmet at all? In this case, the warrior has picked to use some spiky shoulder pads. Well done. All right, so the next question is about your character's personality in the world. Are you ferocious? Are you charming? Are you dignified? Based on the choice that you make here, this affects a couple different things in the game. One, it offers up new dialogue options in conversations. If you're especially ferocious, you can actually interrupt a conversation by punching a guy in the face and ending the conversation. Characters in the world, they're NPCs in the world are basically reaction NPCs who will recognize your character, recognize your personality, and react to it accordingly. So if you're especially ferocious and you're walking around in a city, a little kid might scream and run away from you. If you're especially charming, a bard might start following you around and singing to everybody else nearby about how amazing you are. We try to take advantage of this as much as we can throughout the cities in the game and through the dialogue of your personal story. And it's worth knowing that you actually can change your personality as you play through the game. The game tracks the responses you give in all your dialogue trees and changes your personality accordingly based on the kind of reactions and responses you make in conversation. Alright, so the next question ties directly into your character's personal story in our world. Where were you raised? Were you raised on the city streets? Were you raised as a noble? Or were you raised among the commoner class? For this one today, we're going to pick to be raised in the city streets. And this actually affects the first storyline that you experience across the first 10 levels of the game. And that storyline has branching in it as well that causes the story to change based on the decisions you make. The second question here affects the second storyline you experience in the game. This one also has branching in it, so decisions you make will branch and change the story. And later in the game, you're going to be asked new questions and have to make new decisions that constantly branch that storyline and change it from there, so you really have a unique story in our world. So you can say, I never knew my parents, or my sister was killed by centaurs, but I never found her body, or my personal favorite, I always wanted to join the circus. All right, so next one. This is which god do you believe in? Which god blessed you as a child? So part of the story of the humans in our world is they've been pushed to the edge of almost extinction. All the other races in the world have driven them out of their lands, and they've all centralized in one capital city, Divinity's Reach. And at Divinity's Reach, the humans are fighting for survival against everyone else in the world. So the gods, who once gave great powers to the humans, have mostly abandoned them. And the humans have been unable to figure out why. And this question is, which of those gods that have abandoned them are you closest tied to? So we're going to pick Brent, who is the god of death. Next, you're going to see a summary here of who your character is in our world. This is something that actually updates as you play through the game. And each personal story step that you complete actually will update, so you can go back and read an entire log of who your character is as you finish steps in your personal story in the world.
The human race once ruled Tyria. Now, we struggle to hold our ground. We've been defeated, driven back, broken. We will not surrender. So many nations have fallen. Only Crichton still stands. Our fate is strong despite the silence of the six gods. With courage, we'll make our stand in Divinity's Reach. The city is my home.
So at this point, your cinematic actually branches based on the fact that you picked to be a member of the city, or that you grew up in the city streets. There are unique cinematics for each one of the different places that you could have grown up in the city.
The city could throw at me, and I sent it home bleeding. I'm done living hand to mouth. There's a war on our doorstep, and I refuse to be buried by it. Today I stepped outside Divinity's Reach, hoping to find better luck outside the city. Problem is, when I arrived in Shadewar, the village was under attack by centaurs. Innocent villagers are in danger. Someone has to help. I can take care of myself. That's not enough anymore. Someone has to help those who can't. This is my story.
So a little bit more story setup here. I talked about how the human race has basically been driven back into one great city, and it's the last place that the humans are making their stand. So we're about to jump into the human tutorial here, and what you're going to see is actually a centaur army has marched right up to the front gates of the human capital city, and we're going to join in the battle to try to drive them out of here. So skills on his skill bar there. So the first 5 skills on your skill bar are actually determined by the weapon that you use and the profession that you have. So in this case, Martin is a warrior. He's got a sword and a shield there. So as he's using his sword and killing enemies, he's unlocking the second skill on his bar.
Thank the gods.
He's telling villagers to go hide in the tavern where everyone is regrouping to fight against the centaurs here. You'll notice he actually just dodged out of the way of the centaur charging at him. As I said, action-oriented combat is really important to us. So you're constantly moving. You're able to dodge and roll out of the way and move out of the way of attacks so you're not dead. Skill 6 on Martin's skill bar here is actually his dedicated healing skill. Every profession has a healing skill so they can heal themselves. So they're not stuck waiting for a healer to show up in the game. They can play the game that they want to play and team up with the players they want to play with without having to wait for a healer to show up at any given time.
Sergeant, there are more centaurs on the other side of town. Captain Thackeray is calling for reinforcements of the garrison.
If he's calling for help, it must be serious, but I can't spare anyone.
I'll go. Captain Thackeray's never failed Divinity's reach. If I can help him, I will.
Officer, bless you. That's the spirit that'll win this war. Good luck.
The centaurs back until they arrive.
So we're headed out now to find Logan Thackeray, who is one of the great heroes of the human race, and meet up with him to join in the battle against the head of the Centaur army. So you notice in this entire experience that we've never had to stop, talk to anybody, and read a big paragraph of text that accept a quest. Everything is natural and seamless as you're playing through the game, where you're constantly just playing through and encountering content as it comes available to you, and following your personal story journey. What you can see up there is the green dialogue tracking where you should be going at any given time. And just now, we've discovered our first dynamic event. This is another example of how in the world you literally just walk into content and experience it and seeing it going on. You can see that they're trying to hold the gate here against the Centaur forces. So we're going to go up and we're going to try to defend this gate until the doors are open and they let us inside. So this dynamic event, just like any other event in the game, will actually scale in difficulty. We're out in the open world right now. There are other players who are going to be running around here with us. And the more players who show up, the more centaurs are going to come in each wave of attackers.
The centaurs are in the garrison. Rally to Captain Thackeray. Man the defenses!
So because we've defeated that event, we're now in the next event in this dynamic event chain. The centaurs are about to pour in the front gates here, and there's Captain Thackeray in front of us. And we're going to go meet up with him and try to hold off the centaurs charging in the front gate now. So you see Martin just unlocked the second skill on his skill bar already. He has the Savage Leap, which he just uses to jump at a guy and do a bunch of damage to him. All the weapons in this game work this way, so based on what weapon you have equipped, that determines the weapon skills that you have on your bar. And each weapon you can unlock the skills for as you use them, so you have a strong sense of progression very early in the game, and you can learn all the abilities for the weapon one at a time, understand them, and then learn the next weapon.
There's another wave.
So the final wave of centaurs has been defeated, and now the boss is charging in here.
Enough of this. Take down their leader. You think you can defeat me?
So So at this point, this dynamic event is about to branch again and chain into another event. So we've tried to put giant bosses like this right at the very beginning of our game, even inside the human tutorial, to send a message. This is the point in a traditional MMO where you would be killing 10 rats or collecting 5 puppy tails. And we want to do something more than that. We want to build something bigger with Guild Wars 2. There are giant bosses like this all over the game, out in the open world where everyone gets to experience them, instead of having them tucked away at the end of dungeons where only a precious few of the game actually get to see them. So I talked a little bit about how everybody in the game can actually resurrect. This even goes for resing NPCs in the game world as well. So that soldier's down and we can run up and res him and get it back in the fight. You'll notice the giant Earth Elemental here is actually summoning Earth Elementals to help defend himself. And this event, just like any other event in the game, will also dynamically scale. So as more players show up, this boss fires more lightning bolts out at everyone. He summons more Earth Elementals and he becomes harder to destroy. So Mark is playing as the warrior profession. We haven't had a chance to talk too much about this profession up until now. You'll see there's a little yellow bar that's filling up down at the bottom left there, and that's his adrenaline. And as he does damage and hits targets, this bar fills up and powers up his adrenaline jump skill, which in this case with the sword is flurry, where he does a whole bunch of different hits in a row. There's just a little bit there. And one nice thing about our adrenaline system is the game actually recognizes he missed with the attack. So it doesn't waste all his adrenaline. It actually just gives him a small recharge and now lets him get to use it again. So he doesn't completely feel like he just blew that opportunity. I think Martin just got hit by a flying cow in the elemental through there. You can see even here just in the tutorial, he's nearly on his way to unlocking the 3rd skill with his sword. So he's got a lot of abilities coming available very quickly to him in the game. We managed to destroy one of the Earth Elemental's hands here. See if we can get the other one. There's another cow in the background. So that is basically the tutorial for the humans in our game. At this point, you would get put out in a true open, persistent world with hundreds and thousands of other players running around on the server with you. You get to continue along your personal story journey and actually experience a specific storyline based on your friend Quinn, who, because you picked to be from the city streets growing up, Quinn is in trouble with a gang that you and he both used to belong to, and Quinn needs your help trying to get out of the gang. So you get to experience an entire storyline based around that story. You also have hundreds of dynamic events just nearby out in the world that you can go out and play and experience with all the other players just right here out of thousands of dynamic events that are in the Guild Wars 2 world. But to give you a better idea of what the game feels like at a higher level, we're actually going to jump ahead now, and we're going to make an Asura. And we're going to make an Asura who's up around level 60 or so in the game, and take you to a level 60 part of the game world so you can see what it's like to have a fully unlocked skill bar, and what it's like to have all the various abilities and content that comes available higher level in the game. There are 80 levels in Guild Wars 2, so we're jumping pretty far ahead of the game, but not all the way to the end. And we're headed to Sparkfly Fen. Now the story in this part of the game world is the Hylek, who are the frog people in Guild Wars 2. They're fighting against the undead armies that are pouring up out of the ocean, and they're wiping out all the Hylek that are in the area. And And the Highlander are trying to make a last stand here. The Solari race, one of the player races, has come down to join them to help form the front lines in the battle against the undead and keep them and then push them back into the oceans where they're coming from. So you see, Martin is playing with an Asura, and you can see the Asura animations. We try to get a lot of humor out of them, a lot of fun out of them. The Asura are, whether they like it or not, they're actually a little bit humorous. They tend to take themselves extremely seriously, and as a result, they tend to be pretty funny to everybody else. The Asura believe they are smarter than anyone else in the world, and we'll make sure to remind you that as much as possible. And the Asura are highly magical and extremely great at magic abilities. So we're going to show you a little bit of some of the stuff that they can do.
Getting healthy.
And we're going to do that with the Guardian profession. So the Guardian profession has a lot of different options available to it. It's for those who played a monk in Guild Wars 1. This is, I think, the profession that you're going to want to play the most. But let's show you that in the context of one of our larger dynamic events in Guild Wars 2. This is one of our little dragons. So this is a dynamic event out in the open world. You can see all the little pink dots running around down here, actually to show you that there are other players here playing with us. There are probably a good 10 to 20 other players running all around in this event right now with us. This event is going to scale based on the number of people that are with us. So this boss will become more powerful, he will have better attacks, and all of that will be to make this battle as balanced as possible for the number of players that are here. So there's a lot of different mechanics to this boss battle. The first one is the dragon actually summons these giant bloated creepers that you can see there walking towards you. And if they get too near a player, they're actually going to explode, like that one just did there, and send acid flying everywhere. And anyone who's in that acid is going to take a huge amount of damage. So players need to work together to try to keep the bloated creepers away from you. The second thing that happens in this battle is you'll see those walls that were just exploding. The dragon is actually going to summon bone walls. And these walls serve two purposes. One, they trap players in near where the bloated creepers are. And two, they help protect the dragon from the siege weapons that are set up on the back line. You see Martin just showed off actually being able to resurrect another player there right in the middle of combat. So we're going to hop over and we're going to jump on one of the turrets here and show you what that looks like. So players can man these turrets and fire them at the dragon from the distance. Now the entire time they're on these, there are waves of undead coming around flanking, trying to destroy the turrets. So a group of players needs to be working to kill all the undead that are coming in, flanking around the sides, to protect the people on the turrets. If any of the turrets get destroyed, repair crews will be sent up that players need to escort and keep alive to fix the turrets so that players can get on them again. Now, on top of all of this, we actually have a laser charging in the background here, which is an extra objective for this event. And this kicks off eventually. You want to turn and show the laser there, Mark? There it is. And players have the opportunity to try to defend this laser. If they manage to do so, it's going to unleash a massive charge of energy at the dragon. And the blast actually stuns the dragon, opening him up for about 20 seconds where players can unload massive amounts of damage on him before he recovers. So this happens occasionally in the battle. You see the laser is already charging up again, and now players need to be back there defending the laser as well. Now there's one other mechanic for this battle we haven't talked about, which is there are a little tendrils that you can see in the background there, the dragon's fingers. And he summons these up on the ground, and they actually grab players and throw them back in by the dragon. So this battle ends up having a lot of different layers to it. There's those who are right around the dragon fighting, who are having to avoid its breath attacks and destroy the bloated creepers before they get too close. Then there are those who are fighting, trying to destroy the bone walls, man the turrets, defend the turrets, and keep the repair crews alive. And then destroy the fingers that are grabbing people off the turrets and throwing them back to the dragon. And then there are people who need to be defending the laser in the background so it can get a shot off to stun the dragon so everybody can run in and unload a bunch of damage. This, just like any other massive event like this, happens out in the open world where everyone gets to experience it. So we're coming down to the end of our time here, so in the interest of making sure that you guys all get an opportunity to see the dragon die, we're gonna cheat a little bit and finish this guy off for you. But you can see though, this is the kind of content that you're gonna experience all over the open world in Guild Wars 2. And you'll see, because you participated in this event, just like any major event, you get a chance to stop and celebrate for a second. And then you get to run off and get loot from the giant chest that drops out there, just like any giant boss should give. And it's worth noting that for the purposes of today's demo, we've actually decoupled this event from the event chain that it normally belongs to. However, this event would be part of a massive event chain that happens across the entire southern part of this map, where undead armies pour out and attack all the villages from the Hylic and Silvari nearby. And as they take places over, they continue to spread out across the map. And as they take these places over, undead kill off all the creatures that live in these areas and become the new spawns that live in that area. If players can drive them all the way back to the edge of the ocean, this giant battle with the undead dragon is the final thing that they get to encounter at the end of that event chain before pushing the undead back out of the continent. So we'll take a second and let our sir say goodbye to us here. And some other player decided to join in and do it too. All right. Well, this is just a little bit of Guild Wars 2. If you guys get an opportunity, we'd love to have you come down to the show floor, check it out, and play it more. There's so much more that we brought in the demo here this weekend for you to see. Thank you so much for taking the time to come see our game. We really appreciate it.